She barged into our cabin like she owned the place, yelling, threatening, calling us illegal residents. But what she didn't know was that my wife had set a silent trap, and by the time Karen realized it, she was already caught, literally, screaming and begging to be let out. The moment we laid eyes on the cabin by the lake, it felt like the world finally slowed down. The air was clean, pine-scented, and perfectly still. My wife Lila had always dreamed of owning a quiet getaway, far from city noise and HOA meetings. This cabin was everything we wanted, surrounded by trees, facing the water, with no one but nature for company. We moved in on a sunny Friday, full of excitement and hope, believing this was the start of a peaceful new chapter. But by Sunday, it was clear that peace had neighbors and one of them had a clipboard. At first it was subtle. People walking. Their dogs would stop in front of our driveway a little too long, pretending to tie their shoes while eyeing the moving boxes. Others would stroll by more than once a day, peeking through the hedges or craning their necks toward our porch. Then, one afternoon, a man with sunglasses and a retriever muttered, "Didn't know that place sold." Before walking off quickly, when I looked up, we tried to ignore it. We told ourselves it was just small-town curiosity. But that illusion ended the moment she showed up. She didn't knock. She just appeared at the edge of the porch perfectly. Upright posture, clipboard pressed to her chest like a badge, lips pursed as if she was holding back a lecture. Her sunglasses were too big for her narrow face, but they didn't hide the cold calculation in her stare. "Hello," she said in a tone that was anything but friendly. "I'm Diane, president of the HOA. Lila, ever the polite one, nodded and smiled. "Nice to meet you. Just so you know, we're not part of the HOA. The previous owner opted out, and we decided to do the same." Diane's expression didn't change. If anything, it stiffened. Her eyes slowly swept across our porch, as if checking for violations. Then she leaned slightly forward, her voice syrupy and sharp all at once. "We take pride in keeping this community orderly. That means knowing who's coming and going from every cabin. I hope you understand." Lila smiled tighter. "We're happy to keep things orderly too, but we're also happy to live quietly and mind our own business." Diane didn't appreciate that. She turned on her heel and walked away, but not before saying, "Uncooperative behavior is noted." That night, we found a printed notice taped to our door. It was stamped with the HOA logo, even though we weren't part of it. In shaky handwriting across the top, it read, "Known compliance, occupying without authorization." We were stunned. We owned the property. The deed was in our names. It wasn't even legal for the HOA to issue us anything. But Diane didn't care about legal. She cared about control. The next evening, she returned uninvited, stomping up our porch like she had every right to be there. We were just finishing dinner when she appeared. "You're in violation of HOA residency guidelines," she snapped. "I'll need to inspect the property immediately." I stood, trying to stay calm. "You're trespassing." She actually laughed. "We'll see about that." When she finally left, Lila turned to me and whispered, "She's going to come back when we're not here." I didn't argue. Lila's instincts were sharp. She had worked security at an art museum for 7 years. She didn't get loud. She got prepared that the next day. She set up discreet motion sensors around the cabin, inside the doors, across the entryways, even near the back porch, just in case. She said. I watched her, admiring the quiet fire in her eyes. I thought she was being overly cautious. Until 2 nights later, when we were at the general store picking up groceries, and my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Back entry. Lila glanced at the alert. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "She's in." We drove, back in complete silence. Headlights off, the forest road barely lit by the moon above the pines. The air felt colder than usual, but it wasn't the weather, it was the tension sitting in my chest like a stone. Lila sat beside me, her phone glowing softly in her lap as she scrolled through the live feed from the cabin's security cameras. Her face was tight with focus, her jaw clenched, but her hands were steady. She'd seen things like this before in museums, in security footage, in theft investigations, but this was our home, and that made it personal. "She's in the living room," she whispered. I glanced down. There was Diane, our self-appointed HOA queen, creeping slowly through our cabin like a nosy inspector. Phone in hand, eyes scanning every inch of our belongings. She moved like she owned the place, pausing to look at our bookshelf, opening a side cabinet, even lifting a framed photo of Lila and me from our honeymoon. Her lips curled slightly, like she disapproved of our very presence. "She's probably looking for something to fake report," Lila muttered. "Water damage, clutter, anything she can twist into an HOA violation." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. It took everything in me not to rush in right then, but Lila stopped me with a look. "Wait," she said. "Just wait." Let her walk right into it. Earlier that morning, while I was out picking up supplies, Lila had rearranged some things inside the cabin. At first I didn't think much of it. She moved a few chairs into the hallway, stacked a storage box by the guest room, tied a nearly invisible thread of fishing line across the threshold. "Just a little insurance," she'd said, brushing it off. But now I understood. She hadn't just been nervous, she'd been ready. The phone buzzed again. Motion in the hallway. Then another motion in the back bedroom. Diane was walking deeper into the house, past the living room, nosing into places she had no business being. Then, silence. 5 long minutes passed. Then suddenly, dash, thud, followed by a scream. We jumped out of the car. I didn't wait for Kasai, sprinted the porch steps cracked under my boots. I shoved open the door and found her. Diane flat on the floor in our guest bedroom, one ankle twisted beneath a fallen chair, her purse flung halfway across the rug. The storage box had toppled on top of her foot, and her phone was lying screen down, inches out of reach. She looked up at us, face pale, lips trembling. I was just checking a possible violation, she stammered. I thought I heard something. I was making sure everything was secure, I said. Stepping closer, you broke into our home. You walked into a private residence without permission. That's not your job. That's a crime. I held up my phone, screen still recording from the security system. Her entire little trespassing mission, caught on camera. Every step, every drawer opened, every room snooped through. Lila stepped in quietly behind me, calm, as ever. We've already contacted the sheriff. Diane's face drained of all color. Wait, no, please. This is just a misunderstanding. She tried to stand, but winced. In pain? I didn't mean to. I thought maybe squatters. You thought we were squatters? I asked. Voice sharp. She froze. There it was. The truth behind her power trip. You know damn well we own this property, I continued. You've seen the title, the deed. We showed you everything. You just couldn't stand that we didn't join your little club. Lila crouched beside her, not close enough to touch, but close enough to speak softly. You think a clipboard and a title give you control. But what you did tonight wasn't about order. It was about hate. You weren't keeping the neighborhood safe. You were trying to scare us away. Diane's eyes darted between us, her breath shallow. Please, she whispered. Don't ruin my life over this. I almost laughed. The audacity, but Lila looked at me, her eyes softening. She wasn't letting Diane off the hook. Not even close, but she knew this woman's real punishment had already started. She had exposed herself, completely and irreversibly. The sheriff arrived 10 minutes later. He was a tall, tired-looking man in his 50s, polite but no nonsense. Diane tried to twist her story, said she thought we'd broken in, that she was responding to a noise, that she was protecting community property, but the video said otherwise. It showed her entering the house with no knock, no hesitation. It showed her rummaging through our things like she owned them. The sheriff didn't even try to hide his irritation. Ma'am, you crossed the line. This is private property. These people are legal owners. You're lucky they don't want to press charges. I did want to press charges. Every fiber in my body wanted to make her pay. But Lila placed a hand on my arm. She shook her head gently. She's done, she said quietly. Let the rest of it eat her alive. Diane sat silently as the deputy helped her up and out of the house. Her pride was gone. Her title meant nothing. And the one thing she feared, most public embarrassment, was now her reality. The next morning, news had already spread. Word of mouth travels fast in small towns, especially when there's scandal involved. We didn't have to say a thing. The neighbors who had avoided eye contact days before now greeted us at the mailbox with uncomfortable nods or whispered apologies. A woman down the road brought us muffins. Another couple waved as they walked their dog. One man even said, "Didn't know all that was happening. Sorry for the weird vibes earlier." We just smiled. That Friday, a printed flyer appeared in the community board near the lake entrance. Effective immediately. Diane M. is no longer serving as HOA president. No explanation. No ceremony. Just gone. In the weeks that followed, the cabin finally became what we dreamed it would be. Peaceful, quiet, hours. No more clipboard threats. No more phony violations. Just early morning coffee by the water, and long, still evenings where the only sound was the wind in the trees. And sometimes, when Leela looked at me across the fire pit, she'd smile, that clever little smile, the one that said, "Some traps don't need to be sprung. You just wait long enough, and the villain walks right into them." We didn't need revenge. We just needed patience and a little fishing line. If you love watching justice unfold like this, don't miss the next twist. Tap that like and drop your thoughts for more on QZ Stories, the home of true payback.